that's right. The Survivor Know-It-Alls are back together, streaming live after the episode instead of just being live in the same room. I'm Ross Sister. Here is the knowingest know-it-all, Stephen Fishback.
Yes, the knowingest know-it-all. My trophy. My trophy. What a terrible episode. What a terrible but great episode. And it's like awful to see my friend Liz go home, but just the insanity. Like, Peter said some things that we've never seen anybody say before.
Yeah. All right, well, we will talk about that. I think hopefully this is tongue-in-cheek. You're saying this was not a great episode, because I think this might have been the best of the three.
Oh, I love this episode. In terms of TV, I mean, I was very sad to see Liz go home. Not a good episode in terms of the result. In terms of the actual TV, like, hilarious across the board, great personalities. Yeah, I mean, like, really, really a strong episode.
Stephen, I have to say, I'm very bullish on this season. That Jeff Probst was underselling, but this has been 3 really strong episodes out of the gate.
I think, too, like, had they hyped it, like, too much, maybe we wouldn't have loved it. But 3 strong episodes, all, like, really character-based, too. You know, not crazy strategy. We're not seeing, like, blindsides within blindsides, but we are seeing blindsides. And it's, like, really, we're seeing, like, a lot of, like, strong, nutty characters. Like, I didn't want anyone to go home from the Brains tribe. You know, I could have, like, they're all great, Joe, whatever. I don't need Joe, but like the rest of them are all great.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to talk about all of it. I think the best part about this season, the biggest selling point, there is no boring tribe. There is no tribe. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me go to get a snack.
All 3 tribes had great drama this week.
Yeah. So a lot to break down here live with you guys on the Survivor Know-It-Alls. We're going to be taking your questions live. Scott St. Pierre is behind the scenes, #RHAP, and then also on our YouTube channel at robhasawebsite.com/YouTube. And then some fun podcasts on the way. Of course, we will have our exit interview where we will speak with the great Liz Markham and find out exactly what was going on there, Stephen. Must appointment podcasting.
Oh yeah, of course. All of it, everything surrounding this. This episode was one of the craziest. Like, that tribal council, in spite of a somewhat predictable result, was one of the craziest tribal councils we've ever seen. I mean, just in terms of, like, Peter. Like, all right, I can't constrain myself, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, I'll be quick. And then
get this stuff out of the way. Let's go.
Yeah, I love your shirt tonight. I feel like it's the reverse Star Trek: The Next Generation uniform. I love it.
I don't know.
At least based on what I'm seeing on the screen right now. Anyway, so you're like Captain Picard. It's amazing.
Great. That's the highest compliment you can pay me.
Yes. Okay, anyway, so we're going to talk Johnny Fairplay recap coming after this episode. Haven't done a recap episode with Johnny Fairplay, I believe, since Survivor South Pacific.
Wow.
Because he can handle it. So we're going to give him another shot. Yeah. And then we will do our voicemail podcast with the great co-host of the Bachelor Rahap Up, longtime RJP contributor, Amy from the Amy the Rahap Recapper. We're going to talk to her on the voicemail show. Get your voicemails in as well. All right. So, Stephen, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
That should Liz have gone home? Make the case.
No, I think that was the right decision for the Brains tribe. You know, I think like Liz and Peter, they're off in the water. They think they're running everything. They don't treat, like, I wrote about this in my blog. You know, they talk about the way they talk about the other tribe mates. It's like they're almost inhuman. They talk about them like they're sheep or goats or clay or children, but they never treat them like actual people. And you know, it's just suggests they're just totally divorced from what's actually happening. And I think maybe there was a time in Survivor, you know, in the early seasons when you could treat people like they had no clue what was going on out there. But now basically everyone kind of has a rough sense of how to play the game. And yeah, I mean, they were just so, you know, just completely lost in their own BS. You know, I'm sure a lot of people thought of Max and Shireen last season, where they're standing by the fire, like rubbing their hands and talking about how great and strategic they are. And meanwhile, like, everyone else is like, guys, can you see those two, right? Like, they're the troublemakers.
Yeah. So for Liz and Peter, do you think was this a case of being on the Brains tribe in the Brains versus Beauty versus Brawn season? Did they fall victim to that old thing where you end up becoming what the Survivor tribe tells you are?
I wonder. You'd think that that would actually work against this tendency, right? If you're on the Brains tribe, you're maybe more likely to think that everyone else is intelligent, and then they've got these like nuts. You got Debbie who's a nut, and Joe who's kind of like Daffy. He's doing scissor kicks, and I guess Aubrey didn't want to talk strategy and is having a breakdown, and then there's this one other guy out there, Neil, and you're like, where are the two brains? I see what you're saying. Like, they so identified as brains that they had to be analytical. But even just from the way they talk, like I don't think they could have escaped that. If anything, I think like the season theme would have worked counter to that.
Yeah. Liz talked about in her final words that, when you are counting up the votes, when people are giving you false promises, it ends up being your numbers end up wrong. Was it more the Aubrey and Neil throwing them off, or do you feel like it was more Debbie and Joe giving them the false positives?
I think they were just cocky about Debbie and Joe, right? Like, they didn't believe that these kind of like daffy oldsters could outthink them, and there was just an arrogance there. I think that had to be what it was, right, Rob?
I have to think that that was the case. Do you think that in the case of Liz and Peter, though, was this the classic Survivor overthink? I mean, we had it set up from the premiere,
right,
that we had these 4 people. It was the 4 young people versus the 2 old people. If they come down and say, the vote's Joe tonight, right, Neil? Right, Aubrey? Don't you think that Joe goes home?
So that's the question, right? So we see that Debbie really has it out for Liz specifically, right? Like, she doesn't like Liz for some reason. Like, Liz, more than Peter, Liz seems to really irk Debbie. And I think both Peter and Liz just treated everyone else around them like pawns in such a visible way that maybe on day 2 or day 3 you think to yourself, oh yeah, obviously us young kids together, but on day 9 of that you're like, I don't want to be around this anymore. And Aubrey had that confessional where she was like, Peter is so condescending to me all the time, like I want him gone. And I think that, and then conversely, you have Debbie, who, easy early outcast, but then she's treating, she's bonding with Aubrey. She's comforting Aubrey in the shelter when Aubrey has her breakdown, and I think that probably just over time it ruined them. That's a good question. Like, if they had stuck with the plan, you think that if they had stuck with the plan that Joe would be gone. I don't think that's true.
Well, I think in addition to sticking to the plan, just internally sticking to, okay, it's our 4, it's our 4, it's our 4,
right,
rather than coming up with, instead of us 4 staying together, why don't we get rid of the one only other person who we think could potentially vote against us down the line?
But so do you think Debbie, so you think then the key problem for Liz and Peter was when Debbie said to Neil, hey, they want you out?
I think that the key problem was when they decided that the person who needs to go out is Neil.
But that decision, like whether or not they decide that, like that has no impact on how Neil and Aubrey are voting, right?
Because there's only 6 people in the tribe, and it's too hard to keep this all a secret. I feel like to pull off a blindside like this in the 6-person tribe, because once you're going to be telling, Debbie and Joe that you're with them, you're also telling a different story to Aubrey and Neil. I just think that there's going to be way too much cross-pollination there, and it's eventually those 2 other factions, and it's not voting blocks this season, it's voting units, Steven. There's 3 voting units of 2. I just feel like that those other 2 voting units eventually are going to get on the same page.
We see the difference, just so that we pause. We see the difference here between voting blocks and voting units, right? They're 2 incredibly distinct things.
Yes.
We're all on the same page about that. Okay, all right. I know it's funny because they both have the word voting in them, but like they're very different.
Funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting because like also there's that conversation that the 4 younger people have around the fire, and like they're like, yeah, we should just do Joe, right? And you can tell they're all BSing each other. They're like, yeah, totally, Joe. Like, it's so obvious they're all lying to each other. So maybe you're right. Like, maybe making that decision to violate that foursome was the problem. But you see that Aubrey here likes Debbie and doesn't like Peter. Regardless of them choosing to blindside Neil, like Aubrey doesn't want to be around Peter anymore. And I think that, it's so impossible to say, but I would wonder if they would turn on Peter and Liz anyway. I mean, regardless of their choice, like they're still isolating themselves. They're still speaking kind of, condescendingly to everybody.
Were you surprised, though, that it ultimately was Liz and not Peter, especially after the last 5-10 minutes of the episode?
Well, I mean, I would think, though, that is why it wasn't Peter, right? Like, Peter is more abrasive than Liz. He's a bigger target at the merge or a swap because he's a bigger challenge threat. Like, that's why you keep Peter around and not Liz. Or, I mean, I don't know, Sophie tweeted, why you'd think they would keep Liz over Peter. I would think Liz is more threatening than Peter is, so you keep Peter. Once you're like making that rupture, right? Because this vote is basically saying to the Peter and Liz block, like, we're screwing you, we're not with you. So I think you keep the more threatening one.
Do you feel like it was just pure challenge strength that was the ultimate key, where Peter is going to be a better asset in the challenges?
I don't think just a better asset in the challenges. I think also maybe a bigger, at least from my perspective, if I were out there, also he'd be a bigger target later for others, right? And like, as a player, you always want bigger targets out there, people who are going to get voted off before you. Do you agree with that or disagree?
No, I agree. Peter also said some interesting things in the episode too, like in those last 5-10 minutes or so. He talked about, in addition to him and Liz being smarter than everybody else, he talked about how they're better looking than everybody else.
They have great smiles.
Great smiles. Wow.
A lot of the time when I hear confessionals like that, I think, what was the question they were at? In any reality TV show, what was the question? And the question was something like, Peter, don't you and Liz have great smiles? Like, isn't that why you guys are together? But even so, in this case, he went so far above and beyond with not only are we beautiful, but we're brilliant, we have everything on lockdown, and everybody else is clay, and I am their god king. It was so over the top. There's just no way. I feel so bad for the guy. What was your perspective?
Yeah, I feel like the Peter and people were teasing me on Twitter because I said that maybe I saw a winner edit for Peter at last week on the Know-It-Alls.
Oh, wow.
And then I've got people tweeting to me like, "You're an idiot, you idiot."
Yeah, welcome to my life.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Umberto is saying, "Nice job with Pete Douche. You still think he's gonna win?"
Oh, man.
So really, I thought he came off good last week. I don't know where this came from.
Yeah, it was really funny. It was like letting the genie out of the bottle a little bit. It's like we've only seen pretty positive and together Peter and Liz, and this time we just saw a completely different side of them. It just was like they were disconnected. I feel like the fact that they got in their own little world of self-congratulation ended up really screwing them and separating them from the rest of the tribe. And that's the classic. There were so many classic Survivor flaws. One, treat everyone like they're your pawns. 2, tell other people what to do and don't ask them what they want to do. Mm-hmm. 3, separate yourself from the tribe. I don't know what else. What did they do wrong here, Rob?
I mean, they pretty much just did the classic move where they just made themselves seem like they were self-important and everybody else was sort of just marching to the beat of their drummer. They were going to be calling the shots, and other people don't like to feel that way. People would rather say, I'll screw the tribe over just to screw up your game.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll say is when Liz did go to Debbie, and I'm already getting people accusing me of bias, and that's fine. I'm biased. We're all biased. Everyone in this world is biased.
Hot take.
What?
It's a hot take.
Yeah. I thought that she didn't come Debbie was Liz was bossing me around, and I'm supposed to just follow orders. But that conversation by the well, that was not how that I perceived that, right? From and I'm curious what you thought, because I thought Liz was hey, maybe we should just vote out those two, and glad we're on the same page, and we're friends. And and after the challenge when they lost, and Debbie was so sorry about that, Liz was the first person to comfort her. She was oh yeah, it was super close. I didn't see from Liz that same arrogance in interacting with the tribe. Now, certainly in her confessionals and when she was with Peter, I saw it, but I didn't see that when she was interacting with the tribe to the same degree that Debbie was articulating it. I mean, what was your perspective?
Well, that may be more from the stuff from the first couple episodes of the season where it was like all of the foursome was out in the water and Debbie and Joe were sort of left to their own devices, that she might have just been projecting, oh, they're so arrogant, look at them over there. And then sort of in any other conversation, she's sort of like playing that same song forward of that she's so arrogant and that she's telling me what to do. Right. So you could sort of spin that however you want to, if you want to make the case that these are the arrogant people, these are the people we want to get rid of.
Right. And that's always a very compelling, it's to your point, like it's your, like you said, it's always a compelling argument to take someone out. It's like saying they're acting like a boss. I mean, that is the fundamental Survivor narrative, right? It's the arrogant person gets taken down. We see it over and over and over again.
Yeah, and so for Peter, though, at this tribal council, I was really surprised with just like how much he was just like very matter of fact about what they were going to be doing. And he really like was giving it to Neil at tribal council. I really wonder if there was some sort of altercation that was back at camp that we didn't see, where he really like snapped at Neil, where he talked about, he's going to go forward with his plan, and Neil's like, oh, which one of those plans is that? And he's like, well, it's definitely not your plan.
Yeah, it did. I had the same sort of feeling that there was like some kind of history there. Like it seemed like he was kind of like there was already some sort of antagonism there. For him to like snap like that.
Yeah, and he talked about how Neil could be a snake in ice cream pants.
Maybe the guy in ice cream pants is a snake in ice cream pants. Classic image, the snake in ice cream pants that we're all always wary of. I mean, honestly, like I know people were so outraged by Peter. I thought he was so funny, like in like a comical way, right? Like in like a great, like a funny character. Like Debbie's a funny character. I just thought like and the fact that he was breaking it down, like he just laid it all out there. He's like, we've got our two and their two, and we're going to vote for Neil, and we're going to vote for Aubrey, and that's it. We're going to vote them out. Like, when was the last time we saw something that was that straightforward?
Yeah. I really think that Peter does have a Garrett Adelstein streak in him, going back to the original Brains tribe.
Do you think that there's something about being like an ER doctor? You're an ER doctor, you got to like take control, you like it's the emergency's happening, let me just lay it all out there. We're going to make this happen. We're going to cut off this joint, we're going to cut off that joint, and then the patient's going to be whole.
I think that is definitely part of it. You're used to having a bunch of people around you that you sort of are like when you like there's no sort of like second guessing. I don't believe in that sort of situation. Or maybe, Steven, it's that so many people are making the comparison of, oh, Mr. President, you're Obama.
Right.
Maybe he's just feeling like I'm just going to be, oh, executive order, here's what we're doing. And then he's like just feels like that he's with his cabinet and this is what's going down.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah,
Too much power.
Yeah. I mean, really though.
Checks and balances in a Survivor tribe, Steven.
The what we haven't talked about was how perfectly Debbie played this. I think that as much as we saw that Liz and Peter were kind of oblivious to how other people were perceiving them, Debbie totally understood her role in the tribe, how she was being perceived, and then she played that to her advantage. She says, everyone here has dismissed me, like I'm completely overlooked, and that's great. That's where I want to be. I want to be, flying under the radar. I want to be observing and picking my spots, and she does it perfectly. She goes to Joe, she goes to Aubrey, she goes to Neil and kind of plants the seed in Neil's head. Hey Neil, they want you out. She says to Aubrey, you see them like talking in the shelter. It's just like the way she does it is so textbook perfect that you really got to respect her game.
Yeah, she's really great. And kudos to Lynn Spillman and the casting department. I feel like that she is one of the best casting people, the most original casting people that they've found in years. That she really is like a throwback to classic Survivor, that she is somebody who is just, and she's so good already. I mean, just 3 episodes in, I mean, the camera loves her. She has all these sound bites.
Her confessionals are great, and she's not like a Philip. And I mean, we all love Philip, but like, I felt like Philip was...
We all do, that's true.
Yeah. I felt like Philip was so cartoony. He didn't really have game, so in his first season. In his second season, he did have game, but in his first season he didn't really have game. You know, he was like playing this cartoon. You know, he came in with his like pre-stocked quotes. You know, he was like playing a coach imitator, and like Debbie is herself, and she does have game. And her confessionals, she's not like quoting war heroes, but she does have like hilarious, on point, you know, really like imagistic, vibrant confessionals. She's great.
Yeah. So she is really strong. Are you giving the fishy to Debbie? Can you let us know, Stephen?
Fishy to Debbie, 100%.
Wow.
Right?
Just like at Red Lobster.
Yeah. Who would you give it to? Debbie.
Yeah, I think you give it to Debbie. She's the person who seemed to have put together the whole counter resistance. What about for Neil and Aubrey in terms of all this? Like, who do you think
the right move for them? Right. What?
Do you think that this was ultimately the better move to end up with working with Joe and Debbie? Because I have to feel like, to me, this could be the tribe that could potentially spin out of control and be completely fractured, because you almost feel like that Braun, if they could ultimately get their act together, they could be like one of these tribes where they may not even like Alicia, but she may stick with them just because they tell her that she's going to be a part of their voting block. Like
Blue Collar with Sierra last season, where like they were like, you know, Dan and Mike were like not that great with Sierra at the beginning, but then she just voted with them the whole time because that was the group they were in.
But I feel like that this Brains group maybe could be the group that really is going to be ending up completely going all in their own different direction.
Yeah, they look more fractious. Like, it does seem like the Brains group was like, we're 3 twos, and like they were 3 little voting units, you know, that were each kind of independent and were willing to work. I mean, you know, it was kind of a voting block strategy. I've gotten some tweets asking what is the difference between the voting unit and the voting block. The voting block would be the coming together. The voting units are the separate parts. So the voting block would be Joe, Debbie, Aubrey, and Neil. The voting unit would be Joe and Debbie and Aubrey and Neil. If that makes sense. So, but anyway, you know, versus the other tribes where there does seem to be like a move towards some kind of like central power structure. With on Braun, you have Jason, Scott, and Sydney, and you're right. Like Alicia, while she's not a part of that, she does kind of like define herself within it. And then on you know, Beauty, you certainly have that group of 3 girls. And then, like, you know, the 3 guys aren't doing their own thing. We should talk about Beauty in a second, but like, you know, you know, Caleb and probably Ty will want to be a part of that like core Beauty unit.
That's a great point. On Brains, where is the base of power located? If it's around Scott and Jason on Braun and around the 3 women on Beauty, now who is going to be the central figure? It seems like those other 4 people are rejecting Peter.
Yeah.
I can't see it being Debbie being the leader moving forward in this Brains tribe. So what is going to happen to this group when they end up commingling with the other tribes?
Right, and you know, like there is a natural tendency to stay with the people who you know, but it doesn't seem like that bond is super strong. And you know, like to your point, you know, there's like that question of like, is this like too soon to like? Was it too soon for Peter and Liz? You know, do you kind of want to move forward with the smarter players because it's a long game? You know, it's 39 days and there's a lot of dodging and weaving. Like, do you want to move forward with the people who you feel like will be more simpatico with you, like as opposed to like taking Neil out early? And we were talking about this a little bit last week with Jennifer, where there's this like eagerness in new Survivor players like make the big moves so fast, and like it's too soon.
Yeah. And in terms of you know, when is it not too soon? Do you have a good answer on that?
Yeah, it was whenever I started to target Joe is when it's not too soon.
Yeah. Okay.
No, honestly, what?
Let's talk about some of these other tribes.
I think though, realistically, like after like right before a merge, you know, like about at that, like just before the halfway point is when you want to start opening up your game. But early on, you wanna, you know, you need to keep your options open. You don't need to just be like making these huge blindsides this early. But okay, so let's talk about the other tribe.
Okay, let's go to Braun first before we talk about Beauty, because I think there's more drama there on Braun. I thought that this was a bit of a coming out party for Sydney, because did not see a lot of her in the first 2 episodes, and we got to see a good deal of her sort of being the go-between. I think she's in a uniquely powerful position between those 2 groups where she's seemingly in good with Jason and Scott, and it sounds like she actually is in good with them. But then also she has Alicia feeling like a little bit sort of like the Von Ertfelder thing, where it's like Alicia feels like that, okay, this is my one friend in this group.
Yeah, and she's playing it perfectly. It can get easy to get kind of, flustered in that situation where you do have these two groups. They're both coming to you with information. Alicia comes to her with the idol information, and she plays it so perfectly. First she when they find Alicia comes to her with the idol clue. They start digging. Sydney finds the idol, but pretends that she hasn't and keeps digging, doesn't actually look for it until Alicia's gone away. Then when Jason and Scott question her about it, she has the good sense to admit what she's been doing, because anything less is going to raise their suspicion, especially as she articulates, because of this bond she has with Alicia. So she knows that her position, she doesn't want to set herself up with Alicia, so she has to be doubly honest. She tells Jason and Scott exactly the truth. I mean, it was just so perfectly played. I mean, granted, she doesn't end up with the idol, but would you want to be the one with the idol when everyone knows you have the idol?
Yeah, it's a good question, especially in this group. And if Jason was to know that she had the idol, I think that would make her a very big target in his mind and somebody who he could be coming after her. I just thought it was so unusual from the typical Survivor idol chase, where here's the entire complement of a tribe together on the hunt for this idol, and Jason kind of being and I don't mean this in a bad way, just being sort of the bully of, okay, when this idol comes down, it's mine, everybody, don't even
it really did seem like it was just assumed that it would be his. And even when Scott, I tweeted about this, but even Jason had it in his hand, and Scott, kind of his hand was out too. He was kind of waiting to get to touch the idol, and Jason did not let go of that thing for a second.
Yeah, it's just presumed it was Jason's idol. This is Jason's tribe, and I think that it's really interesting dynamic of how is this Bronze tribe going to move forward with this grouping with now Alicia, who is now clearly flat on the bottom.
Yeah, exactly, and I think Randy tweeted something earlier about it looked like Alicia was going to be he thought they were setting up something where Alicia ends up destroying Jason's game.
Yeah. To me, the key line I felt like tonight was with that Braun tribe was that Scott said, I'm confident that Jason's going to take care of me. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if Jason is even going to turn on Scott at some point.
Oh yeah, I totally. Yeah, when Scott was right. Yeah, I'm sure it's good. And you know that Jason absolutely does not think that way. He thinks like he should think. I'll help Scott if it helps me, which is the correct way of thinking.
Yeah, I do also think that Scott, and I've been complimentary so far about his gameplay, but I feel like that he is a little bit in sort of the first few seasons of Survivor in terms of how he's playing the game, in terms of okay, I'm loyal to Jennifer. I can't vote against her. I know Jason will keep his word to me. I know he's good. Alicia, I just want to let you know the reason I voted for you last night is I told Jennifer she was my friend and I couldn't vote against her. So I just feel like that Scott is being very overly trusting with all of these Survivor players out here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really didn't. I didn't love that decision that he made to tell everybody about, or to tell Alicia that really protracted reason about why I betrayed you because I didn't want to betray Jennifer because I had decided to vote her out. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. And keep your moral point, but don't necessarily. You don't have to share that with Alicia. Yeah.
Now, do you feel like Alicia is kind of dead in the water here on this Braun tribe, or do you feel like that she can rebound from this?
Oh no, she needs a swap, right? I think Alicia's in actually a pretty great position in a swap because if she's not on a majority Braun tribe, she's an easy flop, right? Mm-hmm. And is not someone who's going to be a big target in the game after she gets to a swap or a merge. So Alicia could go really deep. We could see Alicia at the end.
And I really feel like, and we've touched on this before, that she is shaping up. You called her the Sierra from Worlds Apart, but I really I'm feeling like she's getting the Sierra from Tokenshien's treatment.
Just the sort of she's bullied, but is like a fighter.
Not, yeah, I guess so. But I was more saying that she's sort of disregarded, and I feel like that maybe there's more to her story to come.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's her, that's the one, like her vote ends up being useful to somebody.
Yeah, I really think she's going far in this game. Like, I really believe, because, we see that next episode, it looks like there's a medevac, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, they very well could get to a swap without another tribal council. Who knows? Maybe they'll do two. But, I think Alicia could do very well.
Okay, we also saw the Beauty Tribe. Another idol is found tonight. Tai Trang ends up finding the idol. We talked about last week that you had to climb the tree, but it turns out that there was a tool, and I don't know if Tai just did not read the instructions properly of what you needed to do, but you needed to basically push up on the bottom of the idol holder to knock it loose. Tai ends up getting the Beauty Tribe hidden immunity idol.
Do you think this favored the tribe with the giant? The fact that there were idol keys hidden in trees.
I don't know if it favored that tribe. It favored him.
It definitely favored the giant. He might have just bumped his head against it one day.
Yeah, like, hey, what was that?
Yeah.
So Tai now has the beauty idol, and we find out the twist officially. It's that it's half of an idol. So I don't know, is it like shoes where there's like a left one and a right one, and now you have to find, like, if you have two left idols, like, will that go together? Is it any two, or it has to be?
I think it's any two. I got the sense that it was any two idols. And the difference with shoes is that you're actually worse off with one shoe than you are with no shoes. But with two shoes,
Is that from experience?
Yeah. One shoe is no good.
Yeah.
But I like. What do you think of this twist, Rob? What's your perspective on the idol, on this new idol power?
I think it's going to be interesting, but I just feel like there's so few times in Survivor history where one person or two people have access to two idols. I feel like that it's almost like you could count on one hand the number of times that happens. So I feel like it's going to be a very rare thing, almost like a Halley's Comet, that we end up seeing two people putting their idol together for something.
But I think that's good. It's so powerful, right? It's such a strong power that it's good that it's a rare use. And I think it's interesting because it might change behavior. I don't think you want some new twist that's just going to empower existing behavior. You want a new twist that's going to change the way that people play. And who knows if this will, but it has the potential to. I mean, the bigger danger in my perspective is, like, we actually have seen more people with two idols than we've seen people sharing idols. Mm-hmm. So I think that could happen. You had Tyson who had two idols, Parvati had two idols. I mean, there's been a handful of times when people have had, Jeremy obviously had two idols. Mm-hmm. So, that I think makes it less exciting. But
yeah, I agree.
I really like this twist. I like that it gives it a really concrete, strong power, but it requires a lot of effort from the players to activate that power.
What's fun about it is that I think you could get a lot of conversations like, hey, you got an idol? I got an idol. I got
exactly.
An idol. You got an idol? You know anybody that's got an idol?
Yeah, it's exactly. And then you risk exposing yourself for a greater advantage.
So, Steven, do you know exactly how it works? Like, let's say we're at Tribal Council. Yeah. I get voted out. I have the hidden immunity idol in my pocket. Can I turn to my alliance and be like, hey,
anybody else got one?
Anybody else holding tonight? Anybody else got it? Like, quick, give it to me.
Well, theoretically, right? Like, that's how I read it.
And then you're like, yeah, I'll see you at the flip side.
But I don't know. Like,
give it to me.
You might be tempted just to do it. There's kind of that I mean, it depends on how, you'd have to have some kind of relationship with this person, but it would be such a power move, and such a cool move. And mm-hmm. There's always that temptation when you're playing Survivor, you're like, ooh, wouldn't this be sweet if I did this?
Yeah. So Tai Trang has the idol. He appears to be set up pretty well. What did you think about now the talk of the women bringing in Beast Mode Cowboy to be the fourth, I guess, part of the Women's Alliance?
I thought Anna played it so well. The way she approached Caleb and she said, look, we're strong, we're not wavering, you can join us, we don't want to go against you, and we have this target. And that, I think, is the crucial part. She didn't just say, hey, be with us. Why not? She was like, you can't beat us, join us, which is a pretty compelling, but also he's the target, and I think that makes really having a target really solidifies an alliance. Like we've seen that over and over again. So to say that makes Caleb feel that it's a safe offer, that there's a clear enemy, and I just thought it was so strong. I thought Anna really played it perfectly.
Is Ty in with them as well?
You got to assume they're going to tie next, right? But that locking in Caleb was always kind of their goal, right? They even said in episode 1, we've seen him be super loyal, so we like him.
Yeah, I do think that it is a dangerous spot now for Nick to be right before where the traditional swap is going to be in these 3-tribe seasons. It's a spot where they often target a strong player here on that 4th vote in a 3-tribe season.
How much does Nick love Peter? Because without Peter, Nick would have really come off like a douche tonight.
It's certainly douchey. So we'll see ultimately what happens. But I think that would be a good move for that beauty tribe if they did vote out Nick in that spot right before where the presumptive tribe swap is going to be coming into episode 5.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, we think that someone's getting evacuated next week, right?
It does seem like it, and I feel like that Jeff has talked about a lot of drama that happens in episode 4. I watched him with you and Parvati talking about you're really going to get to see a lot of behind the scenes. So it looks like that there will be a lot of medical drama. The question that is going to probably be if there is a medevac, will there also be tribal council next week?
Because typically they have these 18 or 20 person seasons to have a little bit of room to lose some players. So that's the question. That is the question. It's interesting. I was excited to see Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe was our doctor out there, and he's this tough dude, he's like, I don't know, like British, secret, special forces or something, medic. And you'd go to him and you'd be like, oh, hey, Joe, like I've lost a leg. And he'd be like, okay, well, walk it off. So to see him like in crisis mode is if you're like mobile, if you're not dying, like they're pretty like chin up. He's both British and like a special forces medic.
Who did you have in Survivor Tocantins? Was it Dr. Ramona at that time?
Maybe. I don't remember.
You don't remember? Oh my God, look at you.
My health was better back then.
Okay. All right, Steven, anything else about the show before we start to get into some of these questions?
I think we hit all the big points. What did you think? Did you think Jason played too rough with Alicia in the Idol Hunt?
I ultimately did not. I didn't think that he did anything that was like. I know that in the preview it looked like that there was a little bit of a altercation coming, and I didn't know if there was going to be more in the episode. But I felt like there was a little bit of jostling for the clue. But I don't think that's anything that you would have seen outside of like one of these games where it's like you're playing the water basketball or anything like that.
Yeah. I wonder though. It's different in a challenge. I wonder what the rule is about. He wasn't really roughhousing or anything.
Yeah, I didn't think she came away with bruises or anything. I think that they would have made more of a meal of that if that was the case. So I think it was just sort of like, okay, a mad scramble for the idol or a mad scramble for the clue, and then he ended up coming out with it.
Do you think Jason is coming off well? Like because I thought he was coming off like mixed, like at times he looks kind of like a jerk, and at other times he's like a charming jerk, and I like him as a character, but like someone said to me, Jason's coming off terribly, and I was like, what? I don't say that at all.
I think that Jason is coming off great. I mean, maybe to the Survivor internet community, and again, we're a
Survivor Facebook page.
Yeah, but I do think that to the overall Survivor millions of fan viewing audience, I think he's coming off very positive. And this was something that I talked about in the Evolution of Strategy with Russell Hantz early on, where I think that Russell was portrayed somewhat positively early on, where I think if you come into Survivor with sort of, again, that blue-collar work ethic where it's like, I don't care what they throw at me, I will do whatever it takes to win. It doesn't matter if I'm lying. It doesn't matter who I have to knock over. I don't care how much I have to suffer, what's going on with my shoulders. If you come into Survivor with just that like sort of lunchbox mentality or lunch pail mentality, and I think that was at the a part of the Rupert phenomenon where if you just come at it from that sort of like very much, down to earth, I'll do whatever it takes and nothing can stop me. I think that really appeals to people.
What does that have to do with lunch pails?
I think that's sort of like a colloquialism of, you're sort of like a person that's bringing your lunch to the construction site every day.
Okay.
You never heard that?
I mean, I've heard that, but not. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's a sports metaphor more.
The lunch pail to the sports field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna get down and dirty. Okay, let's get into some questions. Steven, why don't you kick us off with our first question of the night here?
All right, first question's coming to us live from Carrie Graveline. Isn't this ball around the holes challenge just like the one in Big Brother that Caleb sat out of and made Frankie do on his own? Ironic that Frankie won it and Caleb made the last ball for his tribe's win. This is obviously going to be for you, Rob.
Yeah, so back in Big Brother 16, there was a moment where Frankie Grande, who the older sibling of recording superstar Ariana Grande, everybody had really had enough of his crap in the house, and it was like one of the most exciting moments of the season where it's like, oh, they're gonna backdoor our Frankie Grande. This is gonna be great, and they basically were gonna throw him under the bus in the Battle of the Block, and Caleb was his partner, and he basically was gonna sit down and be like, Frankie, you're on your own. And then it was a challenge. It was that same exact challenge, but you had to do it with, instead of on Survivor where we've always seen it with one person holding both of the handles. On Big Brother, one person was holding one side and the other person was holding the other side. So it ended up being like a teamwork challenge, and it ended up being much easier for Frankie Grande just to do it himself because he didn't have to have any sort of like, his left hand knew what his right hand was doing as opposed to the other team.
Yeah.
That being said, so even though Caleb sat out of that challenge on Big Brother, in this challenge, he ended up being a person who ended up doing it. So I got that from a lot of people on Twitter. Good catch by all of you guys. Also, I thought it was interesting that in Big Brother 16, Caleb was in an all-male alliance that had only one woman in it. Tonight, he gets asked to be invited as the one man in an all-women's alliance.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy, vis-a-vis the challenge, how it came down to like 1 second? Yeah. And that determined, someone from Braun, likely Alicia going home, or someone or Liz going home. Like, it's crazy that, like, who knows? Like, Liz could win. It's just like that's what every boot is like too. It's like just like so many tiny little snap moments, and that ends up being your narrative on the show. Like, she's out. It's just nuts to me.
Do you feel like that was driven home even more to you by your recent experience playing the game again?
Yeah, and I certainly took that away my first time, just like how many like tiny, like how everything that happened was just based on like tiny little circumstances adding up. Like it's like basically like a bunch of random things happen and someone wins. But yeah, and it's just crazy that it's. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like I saw it with my, just like narrow challenge victories determining the course of the entire game. Someone slips, they'd held on for a second longer, then everything is different. And it makes you think like there's certainly a level of skill that goes into playing Survivor, but there's also just a tremendous amount of luck.
Yeah. The way you make it sound, it's almost like that two guys on the internet can't seemingly know how every single decision is going to go down.
Well, I don't know about that, Rob. I can't agree with that.
Okay, let's take another question. Scott Grimes wants to know, Ty took a big gamble in this episode. If you were caught in the jungle with 20 feet of pole, what would be your excuse, Steven?
Happens to me every day.
Wow.
I think I was thinking that too. It's like dangerous for him to do. But I think you have to like take a moment and just hope.
Yeah. For Ty, I mean, what else would be new if he got caught with the idol again? It's like, Ty, are you looking for the idol again? Like, oh, you got me. So. Yeah. For him, it would be like nothing. He's been caught so many times.
I mean, Penner had that thing. When we last week with the Live No Dolls, Penner was like, he said that he was totally straightforward about looking for the idol. And just said everyone should be looking for the idol. And we saw Braun take that attitude this week, where it's just like, oh yeah, obviously we're all like racing around trying to get the idol, of course, because it's the freaking idol. But the Beauty Tribe has been different, and it's a reminder too that like the things that the social mores for any given tribe are just entirely determined by that tribe. There's like no objective standard.
Yeah, Penner was really great the other night too. Like, I'm looking for the idol. You all should be too. I don't know why you're not.
Yeah.
He was great. Okay, this is from Elise, who wants to know, should Braun have thrown that challenge to get rid of Alicia before inevitable swap and she turns against them? Steven, should the Braun tribe have gone down the intentional Matt Singh path?
You just don't know how many challenges are left. You know, maybe you think it's going to be 4 and then a swap, so we'll do the next one.
Yeah.
I do think you don't want to go into a swap or a merge with someone like that, though.
Yeah, I don't think it would have hurt them if they would have lost that challenge, because that she was somebody who really was seemingly dead weight in that challenge. It looked like that she was not somebody that could have contributed at all. And really, Alicia started. She was the first person doing the ball thing, and she had to swap out. She couldn't do it. And so Scott went, and then Jason went. And then I'm presuming a person can't go twice. So it really came down to Alicia, who couldn't do it once. I'm sorry, that it was Sydney who couldn't do it once, or Alicia doing it for the first time, and they sent Sydney back out there again. Yeah. So I wonder if you would be better suited, not even just to throw the challenge next time, but I think that they probably didn't mind if it was like, hey, we won, but maybe you still have that option to throw the next challenge.
Right, you're not right, exactly, and I'm sure that's the way they're conceiving of it. It's like it's not terrible to although I don't know, like Scott's an athlete, and some athletes just like never want to lose a challenge, right? And I'm not that, like, I'm all about, if it makes sense to lose a challenge, lose a challenge. Liz had that terrible confessional after the challenge, like, oh, maybe it's a good thing that we lost. And while that's never a good confessional to have make TV, it's not a good, it's not a bad thought to have. Sometimes it is a good thing to lose. The danger is whenever that confessional of yours airs, you know that you're in trouble.
Yeah, it is a big, like, blinking red light anytime these people say, like, oh, this was actually a good thing. So it's just going to be me and Peter saying, like, it's just going to be me and Liz deciding who goes home next.
Yeah, but it's like not bad to think those things or even say those things. It's just only going to make air like when your number's up.
It's just bad when we see those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. This is from Tim, who says, was Kyle's way of finding the idol the worst way to find it? Couldn't they have waited an hour or two before searching for it?
No. I think that was the move, right, for Kyle / Jason Sarge, was to just go after it. Because Sydney knows about it. He knows Alicia knows about it. I think that was the move.
I feel like that everything that we know about Jason's character doesn't seem like he's going to wait around for something. It's like, okay, I just found out where this guy is going to be.
Right.
I'm going to wait until 3. I think now he's going to the guy's house. He's kicking the door down. He's just grabbing the guy when it's good for him.
He's a bounty hunter.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a thing.
Bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, what do you got? This is from Carlos.
Carlos has to say, is anyone else really high on Neil right now? Very calm under pressure, self-aware enough, good in challenges. I actually didn't think we saw a lot from Neil. He had like a few great reactions. Well, yeah, what's your perspective?
No, I don't really have a good take on Neil. I did feel like that he kept things under control. I mean, I did feel like that he was going to be a very analytical player coming into this season. That my read on him, I said I thought he was going to be like you crossed with Eric Reichenbach. But I feel like that we've seen surprisingly.
That's a strange cross.
Yeah.
Like, what is that cross?
Yeah, bring that. Put the it's back to back.
Great endurance. Oh, back to back. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, but for Neil, I did feel like that he played it seemingly cool from what we saw. No ice cream puns intended. But for him, I don't know exactly where he goes. I don't necessarily feel like he's going to mesh with Debbie and Joe.
Yeah. I agree. They seem, those two just seem. I mean, Aubrey seems to have more play there than Neil does, right? Aubrey's closer with Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
We see them talking a lot.
Yeah, for the Neil and Aubrey pair, I don't know ultimately where they're going to go next. That's why I'm so worried about this Brains tribe once we get to some sort of a swap.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you're not matched up with the person who's your pair in that Brains tribe, like how it's going to be, where we get down to 7 and 7, or whenever they make a swap. If, like, let's say Neil is on a tribe with Peter, or is on a tribe with Joe, is that going to work out? So I don't really know exactly how if Debbie is with with somebody who's is Debbie's with Neil, are they going to be able to function together?
Well, I mean, though, to be fair, like, we're seeing, as always, we're seeing a very, selective portrait. Like these people for 9 days have been, huddling together in the cold. I think that there's always going to be a baseline of trust and respect for the people who are on your first tribe.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I don't know. You felt that, right? In Survivor: The Amazon, a baseline of trust and respect with your first tribe. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I know you did not. Yeah.
Okay.
So Amanda Fallon wants to know, why didn't Liz flip her vote to Peter last minute? 4-2 versus 3-1, just as a Hail Mary.
That I don't know how much Liz and Peter knew what was going on. I mean, I think that Liz and Peter were conducting themselves at the tribal council as if that their plan was moving forward. I think that Liz said, the person going home tonight, it's not going to be that much of a surprise to them. So it seems like she wasn't like that, boy, I don't know what could happen, or it could be Peter. So she seemed like that she was pretty surprised. Seemed like a true blindside to her.
Yeah, and I think, just like, I think maybe the question is like, defensively, if you're in that position, why not? And the reason is because you have to assume that your plan is, or she does assume her plan is going through. And in that case, if she flipped her vote and voted for Peter, Peter's going to be pissed. Peter's her closest ally. You don't want to toss a vote, like totally destabilize your plan, and throw a vote at your closest ally just as like a self-preservation move when you don't think you're going home. If Liz sniffed that it might be her, then it might make sense for her to do, but she has to know that, thinking that your plan is moving forward, it would be terrible.
Might not be the worst idea, though, once Peter says, Liz and I are smart, we've thought of everything.
Not everything, yeah.
Not everything. All right, let's take a couple more questions with Steven. Pat is cool, wants to say, what would you guys do if you were in the idol situation if you were Alicia, a.k.a. Blondie? I mean, I don't know what you can do.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I guess not share the clue with Sydney is the move, right? Like, she should have like pocketed the clue and gone back later rather than share it and immediately start digging.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best move for her. I mean, I think that she has to, at some point, like, not be so confrontational with those guys. Like, I think she has to get, at least fake the Stockholm Syndrome, that she loves Jason, she loves Scott, that she's not going to be a pain in the ass for them going forward, and making them feel like, oh, maybe Sydney is the person. Maybe, Jason's thinking like, oh, maybe I should take out Scott, and, I know that I'm going to have a loyal number here. So I think that she needs to be a little bit more congenial to the other people in the tribe and not be such an antagonist to them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. She's got that's her only play, right? I mean, I guess her other play would be to have the idol in her pocket.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do Zach Kennedy. Is the real reason for the combined reward immunity challenges solely for character development on the show, or do they make this decision based on the grueling weather conditions? No, I think that this is pretty par for the course in a lot of seasons where early on we end up with just one challenge to spend a little more time with the stuff going on at camp. Not every single season, but I don't think that that's unusual.
Especially for the first few challenges, and especially in a 3-tribe season where there's just a lot to show. It's largely for character development, just to show what's going on at all the camps. Challenges take up a lot of time. Showing rewards take up a lot of time.
Okay, Steven, give us one last question here from
Fire Fist Ace wants to know, should Caleb align with the girls for his own game? I think he'd do better with them, but I also think you should stick with Ty. This can't be our last one. We've already talked about this one.
Yeah, and also the math just doesn't work there. I mean, sure, he can stick with Ty and be with the girls. They want to vote out Nick, so I think that's fine. Okay, let's do one last question from Bro Aid.
Bro Aid wants to know, what do you think of the Super Idol? I think it's a cool twist. Okay, we already talked about that.
How about this? Take the question that we got from, I believe it was from Kaz right before the show started. He wanted to know, do you think that these 4 dumb brains will realize that they absolutely have to throw next week's challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. They absolutely have to. Is that even true, though? I mean, yes. Yeah, that's
So
tough.
it's interesting because you could have two tribes here potentially both trying to throw the challenge next week, where if everybody believes that there will be a tribe swap after 4 people get voted out, you could see the Brains tribe saying we have to throw the tribe or throw the challenge here because we need to get rid of Peter before a tribe swap. We can't let him get off the hook. And then also we have the Braun tribe might be saying we have to get rid of Alicia. We can't let her get back into another tribe and then be somebody who is going to be voting against us after a tribe swap.
Are we being too rigid here, Rob? Though, like in a lot, certainly in last season, but I know that's an exception. But like in a lot of recent seasons, certainly with Tony, people would come back after blindsiding someone and be like, we had to get rid of Liz. She was the snake. Peter, so sorry we had to betray you like that, but you're back with us. Like that's not an impossible move.
Well, it's not an impossible move, but I do think that Peter is going to be the kind of person that's going to say, like, okay, my bad, everybody. I've been just really crazy. You were right. I really got a whole, I got too carried away with everything. I will, scale it back.
I don't think that's impossible. I mean, I think you see it sometimes with people who are displaying arrogance because they think they're in a dominant position. As soon as they get humbled, they get their head rattled and they take a step back and they change the way that they're approaching things. I think that does happen. I don't think it's impossible for Peter. I don't think it's impossible for Alicia. I think that Alicia has confessional after confessional where she's like, I can't believe these guys screwed me over again. And it's like she keeps on putting the fact that she keeps on saying that means she keeps on putting her faith that they're going to be honest with her one more time.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see. Lots of intrigue heading into next week's episode. Will we have one of these two tribes throwing the challenges? Will we have our first medical evacuation of the season here? And if we do, will we also have a vote? So a lot to unpack as well, of course, next Wednesday night. All right, so, Steven, do you have a hashtag for this episode?
Why do you do this to me?
Okay, I'll let the chat room think about it here for a second. And then we'll just set up, okay, don't forget, exit interview with Liz coming up in the morning. Don't forget to read Stephen Fishback's People blog. You could follow.
Live on my Twitter, twitter.com/Stephen Fishback, or my Facebook, facebook.com/Stephen.Fishback.
There you go. All right, so check that out tomorrow. Plus, we're going to have our recap podcast coming out Thursday with Johnny Fairplay back here on RHAP, and then get your voicemails in with Amy at robswebsite.com/voicemail or 323-282-RHAP. And don't forget, if you are a fan of the Big Brother Canada, like Big Brother Canada superfan Stephen Fishback, Jordan Parhar is going to be live tonight on Blab talking about the Big Brother Canada premiere. I will be live talking about the first 2 nights of Big Brother Canada this Friday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and hopefully we will also be bringing you an exit interview with the first person voted out of Big Brother Canada 4, Steven.
Woo!
All right, Steven, it's not the same to not be with you in person for these, but this was still a great night.
I know. It's almost it's as close as we can get until April.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The countdown is on. Hashtag voting unit.
Voting unit. I love it.
Okay. All right. Have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Good night. Bye-bye.